Okay, here. So this is 175.
Oh, that's nice.
175, 180, 180. You can go 5 points.
It's Evil Spock.
Yeah. Mirror Universe Spock. I can do
my
this.
Mirror, mirror.
You should be using this.
I should. But I did not get him.
Hi guys. Okay, so I am in my comic shop right now. We just finished up doing our Star Trek Sealed. So for this episode of the Casual Corner here, to let you guys know how my tournament went, because that's one of the things we're going to add for this is tournament reports. So we did Star Trek Sealed. In my 2 boosters, I had to use 7 or 8 of my figures. I had 2 Andorians, a Klingon Lieutenant, Klingon Commander, Mr. Scott, Lieutenant Uhura, and the Keeper. Okay, so my first round, we actually only had 4 people playing, so we did a round robin. So my first round I actually went up against Jason, and he didn't really matter what was on his team because he had the Mirrorverse Spock. But we did end up going into the underground cavern. There's a typo on the map. Underground cavern, which there's a lot of blocking terrain in that, so there's just not a lot of good lines of fire. So his Mirrorverse Spock actually ended up being more of a deterrent than anything else, and being able to put up those barriers just as actual barriers. And I did have my own Keeper to put up barrier as well, which I only did once, but I should have done more often because he's got willpower. And anyways, that was some more of getting used to my team than not. Anyways, we kind of just went into one of the sides of the cave and duked it out between our Klingon attackers and my Andorians, but he also had the Orion female, which was mind controlling my guys to attack each other. It ended up in like a bloodbath there, where a whole bunch of things just like died in a clump. And then I was down to my Klingon commander on like his last click, and Lieutenant Uhura and Mr. Spock versus his Klingon guys, a Bele and the Mirrorverse Spock, which I just could not. I knew I wasn't going to be able to get to this guy because he also had a Tribble standing behind Spock, so even if I could get to that 18 defense, he was going to mastermind it onto the Tribble. Yay, 5 points. So I was focusing on trying to kill everything else instead. So I ended up going around the cavern to try and get a better line, and also to keep Spock from being able to kill me. But it ended up going to time where my last action was actually using all my perplexes, which ended up being 5, because 1 from Lieutenant Uhura, 1 from Scott, and then 3 from the salvage tokens. And in the last action, I ended up putting like all of it into my damage, a little bit into my attack. I had 5 perplexes to put around, and I killed his Klingon commander guy, or his 70-point guy. Killed it, one-shotted it for the last action, and he still got me on points. So that was my first round, and then my second round, I was up against our buddy Aidan, and he had, I have pictures of teams, so I'm gonna actually put up the teams so you guys know, because I can't remember. But he had a Christopher Pike, and but it was mostly like his little guys that I was focusing on, and he had like 3 sources of outwit and the Yarnek, which is a really awesome little figure who can only move 4, and he has sidestep, and he can't attack, and he doesn't have any damage, but he does do poison, and anybody within 6 squares of him gets +1 attack against someone else within 6 squares of him. So I was getting a big boost to my attack, which is great because I didn't have to use my own perplexes, which is what I had. But at one point, I ended up like not even being mindful of his poison and put a bunch of my guys next to him to try and just take him out, because that also meant that he was getting +1 attacks against my guys because we were all within 6 squares of each other. Big open map, everybody's just kind of clumped together. So, and I put pretty much everything I had into attacking this guy. Now, I've had this problem for a while now where if I need a 7, I cannot hit. If I need a 9, I'll hit that 9. If I need a 6, I'll hit that 6. But if I need a 7, it's going to miss. So there were so many missed attacks. I put so much effort into finally killing this 40-point little thing and getting it out of the way, because he ended up having so many sources of outwit, and with it being a huge open map, he had no problem seeing my guys to outwit my stuff. So once that thing was out of the way, then I was kind of trying to track down his outwitters and basically left Captain Pike alone and just didn't even damage him, didn't go after him, was just picking off all the other little guys around him. There was 2 Belays, there were 2 Telosians, just trying to get points at that point, and managed to basically do it. And then it went to time as well, because there's just so many big teams. Like, these are gonna go to time because the teams are just huge. There's so many figures on these teams. So that went to time, and on my last action, again, I had Scotty with his salvage tokens, with 5 perplexes, put it all in, and I had the chance to either try and take out a Belay, which I know I would kill, or maybe do enough damage to take out Pike, and I had my Klingon commando doing this, or commander left doing it, and he's got 12 attack, 5 damage, going after Captain Pike, and last action, critical miss. And he was also on his last click, so very last action, he died, giving my opponent points, but it wasn't enough points for him to win over me because I picked off enough of his smaller guys, so I won my second game. So my third game was the only other opponent that we had, because there was only 4 of us, and he had a Rook, and a 2 Romulans, and a Telosian, and a Megado. So we went on the open map again, and he moved forward. Now the problem with the Romulans is that they're stealthy. So he didn't have a lot of range on me, but he's able to creep forward because a lot of my guys are range. And so I couldn't shoot his stealth guys, so I would need to go in close. So he came all the way to my end of the board and came in close, and I had the Keeper, who had Psychic Blast, who couldn't see Rook because he always kept him in stealth, but he could see Megado. So I had him with going after that guy because my other guys can do damage, but I need to use my perplexes to do damage, so I'm like, I don't want to waste that. I'm going to use my Psychic Blaster to take out Megado. So that was like its own separate fight, and it got down to the fact that he got the Megado down to his last click before the other Telosian could take out my Keeper. And then he had moved his Rook right in the base of my guys. So I took my Klingon Lieutenant, moved him forward because he can give adjacent characters empower. So I moved him forward, and then moved my Andorians forward. But I am working with an 18 defense, invulnerable, and shape change. So, and he had perplexed up from his Romulans, so it's a 19 defense. So the first one I hit, but my blades, I only rolled a 1, so I didn't do any damage to him. The second one, I didn't roll high enough to hit him. The third one, he got his shape change, so now pretty much all of my guys are based to this thing, because he had moved forward to come to my Mr. Scott and my Uhura, which I do not want anywhere near his giant killing robot. So, I was basically stuck there, and he had the potential to just really hurt me. So he, next turn, one-shotted my Klingon Lieutenant, which takes away my Empower, which I'm like, okay, that's the only way I'm really doing any damage to him unless I want to use all of my Perplexes, and I really didn't. So, but the good thing about my Perplex guys is that they have Sidestep, so I was able to break away Sidestep, keep them out of danger. And then I spent another turn trying to just get at this robot, and I'm like, why am I doing this? And I have my Klingon on the other side trying to, like, my Klingon commander shooting at his guys that are out there. And then he brought his Megado forward, and I had Mr. Scott kill that thing off because my Keeper had brought him down to his last click. So that got out of the way. And then it got to the point where I'm like, why am I attacking this thing? This doesn't make sense for me. There's no point in going through the defenses and stuff on this guy. So I ended up just starting to break away from Rook because he had no charge, no movement attacks. He had Sidestep, but that wasn't enough for him to keep up with my guys. So I had my Klingon commander was in like a death lock with his Romulan lieutenant. And for the life, I went 5 turns. All I needed was a 7 to kill this thing. It's on its last click. I'm pretty much on my last click. I just need a 7 to take it out. And thankfully he didn't have range. So I was sidestepping away, keeping out of him being able to come and attack me. And I finally had Mr. Scott, like, knock him off. Because it's just like, I can't do this. Can't do it. So finally Mr. Scott killed the Romulan lieutenant. And I had broken away with one of my Andorians. The other one ended up dying because he couldn't break away in time. And then I was going around and picking off with all my other guys in my perplexes, staying away from Rook enough to pick everything off. Ended up going to time, because all of these are going to time with how many characters there are. And I had managed that, changing my focus from attacking Rook to attacking the rest of his team was enough that I killed enough characters that I ended up winning that one. So I went 2-1 with my Star Trek guys and had so much perplex, and Mr. Scott is fantastic. He's so much fun. I love this set. But the only thing I do have to say, there are a few characters like Rook, like Mirrorverse Spock, where it kind of keeps the fun down a little bit, because these are really powerful guys that the rest of the guys that you're probably going to end up getting are going to have a really hard time going through. Like my rares, because I pulled 2 rares, my rares were Lieutenant Uhura, who is fantastic for perplex but doesn't do much else for you, and my Klingon commander, who I ended up not being able to use his trait because every time he actually successfully hit something, I was on top click. So it didn't matter if I was getting that heal. But overall, lots of fun. And that was my tournament report for this weekend. And we will see you guys next time for another episode of Casual Corner.